Blessings and welcome, dear YouTube family. Welcome back for another week of 4D Trinity. I am Tuesday May Thomas, and we are going to get going over here on Instagram. I'm so excited for our topic today, sacred orgasm. Oh my. Oh my. Stay tuned. Okay, here we go. Let's get going over here. Blessings. Hello, dear community. Blessings and welcome. I am Tuesday May Thomas, and this is my weekly live stream for Dtrinity. Today, our topic is sacred orgasm, and I am so very excited to come to you. Now, as usual, from our usual place here at YouTube, but from a new location here on Instagram. So I can no longer post. Thank you for joining over here on this new page. I can no longer post at my original, or maybe perhaps that will change. We don't really know, but this is a new page over here at Instagram. So I'm so grateful. Families starting to come over and migrate and follow. And I'm so very grateful for this platform. As always, the messages will not stop. If this ever happens to you for any reason at all, where you are shut down or deleted or just blocked in that way from your social media, know that the story continues. Your work does not end there. You carry on, right? Make up your, if this is something that's coming up for you, I'll just do this on the side before we get going into our orgasmic conversation this morning. But if this is something that you feel is coming up for you, start to make your backup pages. That's what I started doing previous to this, when I was getting all of these notifications from Instagram saying they were going to delete my account and stuff. I was like, well, shoot, let me make sure I got some backup pages, that in my name, so that if and when this does happen, that I can just switch over. And that is what has happened. And so I'm so very grateful. So thank you everyone for being here. And if you're new to me, thank you for joining. Again, this is my weekly live stream for Dtrinity. It is here where we access the fourth dimension of consciousness, right? This is consciousness. This is accessible through the tiny space in your heart when we generate Taurus consciousness, which is the previous step or the post step after learning how to run your Merkaba, after learning how to be in your body, but know that you are not a body on this planet, and learn how to master the third dimension. Running your Merkaba, learning how to live in that frequency of love and only love, which is what being in this third dimension and zipping around in your Merkaba is all about, and learning to be okay, learning to be okay with love. Learning to, get used to that frequency, because here, especially if there's a lot of pain, right? There's been a lot of healing and trauma or violence or sexual, who knows what, especially now we're talking about sacred orgasm today. There could be a lot of ancient trauma that you come up against, right? When you come to exploring, opening your chakras and opening your body and feeling safe as a body on this planet. And that is understood and that is respected. Yet there is a certain point where we recognize, oh, I am not this body. And that's a level of freedom right there. And once you have that sort of extraction and that detachment, you can start working in the physical form in a different way. Not that you can't previous to that, but then you can start saying like, oh, okay, these are just memories. These blocks, these limitations, these things where I'm hurt, or where I can be triggered and be re-hurt, or where I'm scared of opening myself intimately with another. We begin to understand like, oh, these are just grids. These are just memories in my cells. These are just stories that are playing out repetitively until I consciously decide to come in and change the story and create a new story on behalf of myself, right? And not just in this dimension. When you consciously do the work, you are working in this third dimension. And because of our anchor point energetically, which they're giving me more and more info on, but because we are finding ourselves here in these bodies first, for the most part, right? Unless we're already coming in enlightened. But because we're finding ourselves as this body here first, this is our anchor point. This is our point of power in understanding how to live in harmony with it. And this is important for your orgasms, especially your sacred orgasms, right? But to live in harmony with your body, to accept your body, to love your body, to heal your body, right? The health issues, which we know metaphysically are an aspect of what is going on in the mental continuum, which triggers the emotional continuum, which triggers, the matrix, which keeps things Feed forward loop, feedback loop. We're just generating the simulation, and all the atoms in the universe are just waiting at your command for what you imbibe them with, for what you think or what you see, what you perceive, right? And we've spoken about this. It's when we move into holy vision, when we're seeing with the third eye and the heart center, that God, source, love, light begins to see through us, and we no longer see. We no longer trigger the observer effect in this matrix, you see. That's what I'm going with. That's what I'm researching. That's what I'm theorizing and proposing, is that God begins to see through us. And so the usual trip lights of this matrix that would catch us with our knickers in a twist when it comes to getting sexual or enjoying our bodies and having a beautiful orgasm, whether it's by yourself or with another person, you start to get over those prejudices and that shame. I mean, my whole upbringing, if you read my book, The Reiki Apprentice, right? The first opening is these teachings. God bless my grandmother. I love her. And thank you for all of your prayers for her and everyone asking for her. She is well. We love you, Grandma. Yet at the same time, right, our family can really instill some really deep lessons for us to learn by. And when I was really little, my grandma told me, she looked me in the eyes and told me that whenever a man looks at you, all he wants is sex. And the way that she said it, and I was little, I didn't even know what sex was, but I just knew it was something to be afraid of. It was something to shame. It was something bad. It was something to look out for, because the way that she put it in there, and that I didn't even know what it was. And so from there on, I was confused. And then the sexual escapades, again, it's all in chapter 1, which you can read free on Kindle. I think the whole first chapter or 2 of the book are free on Kindle. On Amazon. So if you're like, ooh, what's going on? Check it out. Because we all have these aspects, right? And maybe you haven't been abused or molested as a child. Maybe you don't have, certain weird oddities or ancient karmas of being violently traumatized sexually or something from your past. Maybe you're cool and in your body and you're just ready to explore. Maybe you already have a lot of sex, but you want it to ground and anchor in a more sacred way. You want to understand the aspects of energy, of what's going on and how to harness that, right? And that's where we're focusing today. Okay. Maybe you're single and it's all about self-pleasure, which is fine, which is absolutely fine, right? But it's learning to maintain and to recycle the seed of source, that prana, that chi, that divine kundalini life force that spills from us. We're going to do some reading today. So get your tea and chill, because I'm going to put my glasses on. We're going to be reading today. But it's that sacred life, it's your life force energy. Now, my video has just been paused on Instagram. Wow. Okay, here it is again. Do you believe it? Do you believe it? Here it is again. Wait, it started doing, couldn't refresh feed. Nope, wait, oh. Wow. Look at this, family. Isn't this just amazing? Isn't this just amazing? So I guess what I'm going to have to do is record this here on YouTube, come back, make a screen recording of the show, and then plug the screen recording up on my Instagram, if they'll even let me in. It's not even letting me in. It's not even showing any posts on my feed again. So, okay, so let's pause a moment, because we are going to do this show. And now, if it's not going on Instagram, then it is what it is. Okay. We're going to do this here on YouTube, old school style. Remember when I only did shows on YouTube before Instagram? And for a minute there, for a year, I was doing Facebook as well. So we will get into this, but because this has happened, and I'm amazed. I'm really amazed, because I didn't even have an option right there to appeal that. It just offered me to discard the media on Instagram. In the past, before I even knew what was going on, that your page could even be deleted or taken away, or could be a threat in some way, they would always say, this media, here's the reason why XYZ, and you could appeal it and maybe they'll come back later. I remember when they did this the other week, it was hours until later when I got a message saying like, okay, your information has been da 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 because, and I don't have anything here. So, okay, so that is what that is. And you know, it's interesting here on the live chat, I don't have any live chat. Now, I've also gotten a warning from YouTube, by the way. I've gotten like 1 or 2 warnings for speaking about 5J. I mean, how are we supposed to talk anymore? You know, I know Ken Wheeler, right, who speaks a lot about electromagnetism. He writes on a chalkboard and he'll put the 5G or the C word or the V word, and he won't even say it because he knows that it triggers things. And this is where we're getting to, family. We're getting to this ridiculous point where our freedom of speech is being so deeply monitored. And my sense, see, you see how I have this purple sheet over the couch? Because my innocence, my mind wants to think that they are just, because at first, because they kept saying on Instagram, oh, it's nudity and sexual activity. And, I like to show some shoulder, maybe a bit of leg. I wear my little dresses or whatnot. Oh, here's the God phone. Let's see what God has to say about all these shenanigans. Hey, God, what's up? Oh my, you did not just say that. God says, don't mind the haters. No, you did not. God, you are a trip. Okay. God's all like, I have a message for the message of the show, which is not this yet. Okay, we're going to do reading. Yes. I got your downloads earlier. Autobiography of a Yogi, the Yoga Sutras, and the Chakra Handbook. Yes, I'm very excited to put this information together with regards to sex and sexuality. God sends blessings and love. And don't mind the haters. Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you, dear God. And remember, God is genderless. Okay, so this is going to be interesting as we go forward. So now that we're on YouTube, maybe we don't have to cut off at an hour either, huh? God's like, do as you will. Blessings, dear God. Thank you. Okay. So, yes. Okay. So I've even put this sheet on the couch because my innocence of mind has said to me, oh, it's just bots now, right? Since Instagram, this really started happening as well. Well, no, it happened a few before it, but it really started happening when remember Facebook took over Instagram. It was like November or December or somewhere around that big conjunct, which was very interesting. And ever since then, like, I feel like the whole thing is being run by bots. Now, I'm going to put it all in a bubble of light because I don't know. And again, we are going to talk sacred orgasm, but because this is up, I cannot see your chat. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I'm going to talk about this because this is my channel. You know what I mean? And this is like the real deal of what's going on. And so many others have been talking about how this is happening to them or to people they know, or people are catfishing and like taking over. Someone even made a thing, months ago, that's Thomas Tuesday May. And it's not me. And I even wrote them and I was like, and I tagged them and I reported it and all that stuff. It's like, what is that? It is what it is, right? Now they haven't posted anything, but I keep an eye. And now I'm like, oh snap, I got to just like keep an eye, like continually on what's going on here. So anyway, getting back to it. So my sense was like, oh, it's just these silly bots. They're reading this skin tone with the white of the couch, or if I'm wearing a white dress and my skin and it's blending with the couch, and I'm thinking, oh, these silly bots, they're just reading it as nudity. They're not seeing that there's an actual dress on the form, that there's actual clothing in the middle of the arms and legs, and so, and I had appealed and then, reported it and this and this and that, but to no avail. And to the point where they continually, every time, remember, week and week and week in a row, every time, then my video, just like what happened here, we'd be going 5, 10, 15 minutes in and then snap. This time, again, they didn't even say why. Not yet. Maybe they will later. So, but this is my second Instagram account. I have several for my other, projects and stuff, but this really sucks. This really fucking sucks because Now I'm understanding there's a certain meter. And I thought by, decorating the back of this couch to make a very strong impression that, like, here's a background, here's a body, there's two different color templates going on, that the bots won't be confused. But now on another level, so in a bubble of light, others have offered that there's someone, out reporting me that is, trying to take me down, sort of thing. So, okay, if this is so, right? Fine. I mean, it's very 3D, and perhaps there's some karma there that I get to learn some lessons through. I get to, obviously, I mean, it's here, it's happening. So I get to sit with it, and just allow it to be. And I don't take it personally, because you can't fuck with me, period. So there's no threat there, really. I mean, if there is someone trying to, like, continually kibosh or cock block my lives, it's specifically the lives, then okay, we're going to have to just work with this in a different way, in a new way, and all I can feel and all I can see from this is the furthering of resourcefulness and creativity moving forward. So I'm sure there's more that I could say about all that, but that's not the topic of the show. So again, I really appreciate it. And I guess what I'm going to do is and I even invited family from Grid Mind Science. I put that up in my stories today, thinking, oh, we're going to have a whole new, reality. Isn't that funny? I was going to say grid and reality at the same time. We're going to have a whole new gridality here. So let me welcome and come, say, hey, people who haven't come before, maybe come and check this out. But there's obviously a different grid running. So we're going to let that run. We're going to have a sip of water and we're going to move on. And I can't read the chat. So if you have moved over here from Insta, I'm so grateful. Yeah, and I'll just have to tell people, like, hey, join me on YouTube, and are we going to go back to just doing this on YouTube Live? Should we just fuck with the system and go back to Facebook Live too and see what really happens? Maybe that's a point. You see, I'm getting all juiced up. I'm all like, what you got? What you got, baby? It is what it is. And this is the thing, before we just round off, if you are a speaker, a minister, a preacher, a sharer of your divine creative ideas, and you feel that you're getting blocked and kiboshed in that way and whatever, don't despair. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like I was just saying, it's like, okay, well, let's get resourceful. Let's get creative. There's other ways than spirit is with us. If we are telling the truth, like my dear mentor, Jean Galliano, when I was having all my issues with my grid messages, and she's like, look, girl, you're telling the truth. If you're telling the truth, people who hear the truth will come because they know the truth. Keep telling your truth. And so, like that way, in the same way, I offer that to you. No one can fuck with the truth. And you're on a mission to share, and don't be dissuaded. Don't get your, it's so funny, right? All the don'ts. I don't like telling people don't do things, I was going to say, but that just sounds moronic in a way, or interesting. Interesting anyway. But don't despair, I think, is the message that I want to share, because again, there's also this idea where, friends are like, yo, this is just the dark side. Now there's a whole show that I want to do on that, because I also realize where there's a part of the work that I've been doing for over 20 years now with the grid that I've been in denial about. And it has to do with the light and the dark forces and the stories of the galactic wars in this universe. That's not something, that I don't do that stuff here on YouTube. We don't go there because that hasn't been, that's not anything that I've had any draw to or distraction. I'm aware, of course, all of these aspects are operating and they're here. Yet that hasn't been the focus. And in fact, that has been very much sort of pushed to the side, because to me, there's a sense of like, that is so Matrix. that is so the perpetuation of all of these records and everything and blah, blah, blah. And I'm all into this fourth dimensional consciousness. Like, let's create with God, with source, with love, with light in the now to bring about those aspects that are not written in any Akashic records, that are not in any timelines, but that are coming as that spontaneous new moment nowness. Of course, once they're here, then they're embedded in the Akashic, right? Yet, in that divine transmission and that divine co-creation and that divine birth that you give to your creations or that you share, it will be the first, it will be the now new moment version. And as we continue to learn how to create that for ourselves in our everyday life, we can continue to trip the light fantastic as it was from moment to moment, having a moment to moment experience in life and being in the present moment. Because that's what fourth dimensional consciousness is. It's being so undistracted by time, so undistracted by memories, by fears, by triggers, by limitations, by the stories that the world, that the matrix would tell you. It's being so unattached and unaffected to your own stories. Did that sound weird? My hand made a sound there. Kind of sounded funny. You know, but we get out of those stories, and all of a sudden there's a whole other level of co-creationship and of divinity that's like beyond the maze of the stories, right? This is us. This is us in the matrix. These are all the stories, all the grids. Okay. All right. So perhaps there will be more to come, but I know this is not over. I don't know what it means. But understand, family, if you keep going. I'm just going to encourage you to keep going and don't take anything personal, which I didn't. When it first went down, I was like laughing. I was like, oh, really? This is happening now. Okay. Shifting gears. And I was almost relieved because I was like, oh, I get a fresh start, and now sitting with it more. And now as this has happened, I'm going, okay, we get to look at this on a deeper level. So we will, but let's go ahead now after all of that. And thank you for being here. And if you need to go and come back, this will be up for you for later, okay? And again, I can't read the chat, so thank you for being here. If you're here on YouTube, we are going to be doing some reading. So we're going to talk about the sacred orgasm. Now, where did this whole idea come from? A year ago, when this whole cray-cray in the matrix started, it was last April, I began receiving downloads for what I didn't know at first was and has become Taurus Tai Chi, which I now teach, which is really incredible, in conjunction with Yang style Tai Chi. But my angels, my guides, they started showing me this meditation with this mudra, with the fingers and this very specific breathing. And they would show me this imprint of how it would affect the flow and the generation of life force in the Taurus field as the Taurus field. They showed me the Tai Chi moves, and they continue to do it, like little by little, bite-sized offerings they would give me, and I would, practice them and learn them and understand then in my, conscious downloads, like, oh, what this is doing energetically to the energy body, to the vehicle of the energy body. They showed me how to use Kapalabhati, Bhastrika, Mulabandha, and Qigong fused together as a means to create and generate the hyperbola, which is an aspect of the sacred geometry that is absolutely required in order for the Taurus consciousness, for that Taurus geometry to become activated. The hyperbola must be created and generated first. And there's a breath practice, as I was saying, that helps to generate that. I didn't make any of this stuff up, though. They have gifted it to me. And little by little, I've implemented the practice until it's become a staple over this whole year. And now I'm putting it into a book. If you go to my website, I've redone my website. There's a page called Taurus Consciousness, where I'm making an interactive book. It's just the very beginning now where you can see the main chapters, but this is a part of it. The Taurus Tai Chi is a part of it. And then of course the sacred orgasm, which we're going to review. We're going to read here. What is this sacred orgasm? This is about understanding that we are an energy body. It is about understanding the power of life force within your body, right? It is about understanding that your orgasm connects you to God, to source, to love, to light, to the ever-present bliss that is in the matrix, yet has its roots beyond this place. And it's using our sexual vitality, using our sexual intention, and where and how we place our energy and with whom, whether it's by ourselves or with another, in consciously generating the recycling of this sacred life force energy as it abides within us, and those sacred life forces that we awaken, right? So just to even feel sexually open or active is a big deal in the first place. Like, as I was mentioning at the beginning, right? As a child, I had so many issues around sex, around being in my body. I was a prude for many, many years, even in my 20s and early 30s, when I had dreads down to my butt and piercings and my tattoos, and I headbanged in a hard rock New York band and all this stuff. I was still a prude, meaning, I don't mean anything bad by that. I just mean that I hadn't come to terms with my own sexuality. I hadn't healed. I hadn't healed certain deep, deep parts of myself so that I could see and be in clarity without my triggers, without my, all of those hangups and those fears blocking my vision, my ability to just be present in my body. I had issues with my body for years. My weight gained and lost and gained and lost, but this was all relative to the issues that I was dealing. And it's all in my book, The Reiki Apprentice. Okay, there's a link at my link tree, Kobo, Kindle, paperback. So understanding, though, that when we come in with all of these things from our past, they all walk with us, and to the degree until we heal them, to the degree until we heal those parts of our lives, we walk with them, and they create those filters that we see through. And those filters are either going to allow us to have a greater sense of freedom and sovereignty and present tense, present state being in the moment, which is spontaneous, which isn't full of all sorts of ideas from the past that's trying to figure things out and has a specific, point at the end. Now, and with orgasm, there is a point at the end, though, isn't there? Right? And there's so many different pages in this puzzle, and there's so many different spiritual, ways that we can use our energy or access our energy. And I remember there was, it was at least a 2-year period where I was called to be brahmacharya, which is celibacy in yoga. That's where you consciously do not have sex. You consciously do not masturbate. You don't even think about having sex. You don't even think about masturbating. When you get that fire in the loins, the fire in the basement, what do? You move the energy from that root, from that second chakra into the heart. You breathe it up, you move it up, you keep transmuting it. You learn how to do that on purpose and with great intention. And then you learn how to utilize that energy in a different way through your heart center, through your third eye. You use it creatively, right? And I remember like the buildup, because I was then later in Maui. And Maui is I don't know about you, but I got kicked around in Maui. I had some serious karmas there, but I also met Ram Dass and got to spend a whole day with him, which was the very last day I was there. It was like universe was like, okay, kid, we kicked you around enough. Here's the blessing, But Maui's got a lot of sexual energy, And I remember that's when I broke. It had been the 2 years or whatnot. And I remember it was like the very end. It was before I met Ram Dass. It might have even been the night before. And I remember I was like, I got some, I got into my own sacred space, and I just remember the energy, all the drum circles and the nature and the wind and the ocean and the sand, and just everyone's so free. I mean, there's nude, sunbathing and volleyball on the beach, and everyone's naked. brain's going to be getting a few ideas. You're going to be like, ooh, okay. You know, they say that's, you know, maybe mostly for men, that they're very visual, but who made that up? A man? Anyway, different strokes for different folks. Okay, there was a pun. But you know what I mean? So, you know, anyway, I'm in those environments, and yeah, and that was it for me. That was it for me. Maui called it, and that was the end of my brahmacharya. But after those 2 years of learning, I mean, even those 10 days, or that 9 days, I think I was there for 10 or 12 days, all in all. And let's just say those first, like the majority of the days before the last 2 days that I was there, anytime, because I could feel that sexual energy in Maui, I was like, oh my God, like to the degree that not in LA with all the traffic and the blah, 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 but with all the nature and the openness, and everyone's just all relaxed and free. And I was like, oh, I even forgot how I felt in that mode of just relaxed and free and easy breezy, and feeling my kundi, and like, woo. And like right away I'd run to the Buddhist center, and I had a monk, Lama Lam, that I would meditate with, like every morning at 6 a.m. and every evening at 6 p.m., you know. But I would go right there, and I'd be like, okay, chanting for an hour and a half to just move this energy up. And so there's a way you can be with it in that way. Yet that's not perhaps very accessible or very, you know, reasonable for a normal, quote, person living in the third dimension who has a natural vitality. And it's a whole other different story, right? If you feel that you don't have vitality and you don't feel that you're happy in your body, that's a whole other story, right? To learn how to heal those aspects so that you can be comfortable in exploring those aspects within you, right? Your sexual tendencies, your sexual fantasies. And it's okay to have these things. We all have them. Yet to move in a sacred way with the dance of co-creation, because that's what sex is, that sexual union, we are connecting either with another person and creating that holy trinity with that cosmic life force energy, or it's ourselves with that cosmic life force energy. So it's never just one, right? You're either having, you know, it's you and God, or it's you and another person and God that is making love, or that is having sex, or that is generating the sacred cosmic life force. Now you generate it by placing your conscious awareness there. And as that conscious awareness is present, and believe me, we're going to break it down here, but as that conscious awareness is present, what happens is it creates that sacred space, the container for your experience to be of that divine and higher order. And that's all it is. You know, spiritual community, right? It's like that makes the difference when you take those 5 minutes to meditate, when you take that moment to say that prayer of intention, that conscious like rooting of the focus of where you're going to direct your perception, your energy, your awareness. That is very, very vital and important to creating that first plane where everything else then builds. So, right, creating that sacred conscious space. And then that container is created for your own awareness and awakening and connection with that divinity of Kundalini that is awakening at the base of your spine, because that's what's happening. And we're going to read a little bit about this here now, right? When you really make contact and you invite spirit and source in, when you masturbate, when you fucking masturbate, yes, when you have sex. And now maybe it's not every time. You know, maybe you're like, well, sometimes I just want to be 3D and have fun and whatever. And then sometimes I want to be light the candle and whatever. And it's like, okay, you do you. You're going to figure it out. And if you listen to higher self, you will know. You will have a heads up on you know, when the vortex is open, when it's an appropriate time or a good time to maybe suggest that with your partner. Do you want to explore this sacred practice, or when it's, you know, not that time, or perhaps when you're on your own and when it's a good time or a good round, if you will, to explore that practice of generating the sacred orgasm. So let's go ahead. We're going to go back in time, and we are going to read, okay, first from an autobiography of a yogi. Okay. We're going to first read from an autobiography of a yogi. And I know it's very, the lighting in here is tricky, you know, and I'm just going to say it's interesting. It's all just interesting. We'll get it though, and we'll get to where we're going, because we really don't need to go anywhere. We're already here. We've already arrived. So we get to relax and allow the dots to connect on behalf of us, yet those dots connect on behalf of us by us creating the correct conditions for them to be so. So I'm going to read from Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And we're going to read through page 143 all the way to 145, from the lower part of 143 to halfway through 145. Now he's going to speak about Kumar, who is a young gentleman who came across the ashram and who had made an impression upon Yogananda's guru. Keen intelligence is two-edged, Master once remarked in reference to Kumar's brilliant mind. It may be used constructively or destructively, like a knife, either to cut the boil of ignorance or to decapitate oneself. Intelligence is rightly guided only after the mind has acknowledged the inescapability of spiritual law. My guru mixed freely with men and women disciples, treating all as his children, perceiving their soul equality, he made no distinction and showed no partiality. In sleep, you do not know whether you are a man or a woman, he said. Just as a man impersonating a woman does not become one, so the soul impersonating both man and woman remains changeless. The soul is the immutable, unqualified image of God. Sri Yukteswar never avoided or blamed women as the cause of man's downfall. He pointed out that women too have to face temptation from the opposite sex. I once asked Master why a great ancient saint had called women the door to hell. A girl must have proved very troublesome to his peace of mind in his early life, my guru answered casuistically. Otherwise, he would have denounced not woman, but some imperfection in his own self-control. That's interesting. If a visitor dared to relate a suggestive story in the Hermitage, Master would maintain an unresponsive silence. Do not allow yourself to be thrashed by the provoking whip of a beautiful face, he told the disciples. How can sense slaves enjoy the world? Its subtle flavors escape them while they grovel in primal mud. All nice discriminations are lost to the man of elemental lust. Students seeking to escape from the Maya-induced sex delusion received from Sri Yukteswar patient and understanding counsel. Okay, so there's a little bit more, but this speaks to do not allow yourself to be thrashed by the provoking whip of a beautiful face, right? How can sense slaves enjoy the world? Well, it seems that that's all that sense slaves do is enjoy the world, right? Yet from that limited sense and through the senses only. And this is what we're talking about, is that we're going beyond the first few chakras here. We're going beyond just the pleasure sensation of like, oh, the clitoris or the shaft or the, whatever all these terms are for our sexual organs. Yes, let's become pros at all that stuff. Let's learn about our bodies, about what feels good, about what is in harmony for us in that way when we make love and share that with ourselves and others. Yet making love with God is what we're talking about. We're talking about employing that awareness of sexual union that is in the body, but beyond it. We're talking about that sensuality that abides once we know we are not a body, once we know we are more than this body. The pleasures that are allowed to come in and to support our experience of being in this body are allowed to become amplified. And the irony of the way that this stuff works is that the more that you detach yourself from needing pleasures and a third dimensional level to be any specific way, is that the bigger, the broader, the better your experience can become. I'm talking sexual experience. I'm talking orgasm. I'm talking your feeling, your every feeling of every moment. You can be turned on and lit and activated and present with every sensation on a multiple level, because you are a multidimensional being. So on a multiple level, be fully turned on and activated, not just the tip of your clitoris, not just the tip of your penis, not just, wherever in your body, but that actually becomes a gateway and a portal to your spirit being turned on, to you inviting and creating that sacred space for more spirit to come in to your energy body, to channel through you. So let's keep going. Beyond the senses. So we use the senses, yet we learn that there is more. We learn how to go beyond them. So I think it's cute that he said a girl must have proved very troublesome to his peace of mind in his early life about that guru. Otherwise, he would have denounced not the woman, but some imperfection in his own self-control, right? So it's not women wearing short skirts. It's, well, anyway, that's a whole other show, right? Because we can talk about the matrix and all the conditioning of male and female people, humans and whatnot. Yet, let's keep going. Just as hunger, not greed, has a legitimate purpose, so the sexual instinct has been implanted by nature solely for the propagation of the species, not for the kindling of insatiable longings, he said. Destroy wrong desires now. Otherwise, they will remain with you after the astral body has been separated from its physical casing. Even when the flesh is weak, the mind should be constantly resistant. If temptation assails you with cruel force, overcome it by impersonal analysis and indomitable will. Every natural passion can be mastered. That's what I was doing that brahmacharya, doing that celibacy. It's like, oh my God, here's some fire in the basement. What am I going to do with it? Let's move it up, move it up that spinal column, move it into the heart, keep transmuting, keep learning alchemy. And that's really a huge part of where I learned alchemy. That came later, but there's the Reiki, there's the learning how to shift your mind, your thoughts that are on perpetual, right? Repetitive motion, creating your reality and your biology through the matrix, through the grids, etc. That's all alchemy. Yet you don't know your alchemical powers. You don't know yourself as an alchemist until you really learn to heal your life. And all of these little parts of it are so vital. Changing your mind on purpose, consciously, with intention, and then continuing to change it in that direction that you would rewrite and have it until it's running on its own. And you no longer have to babysit that thought or keep putting it in there, because now the synapse is connected. The grid, the synaptic sky is connected for you. So it runs that feed-forward feedback loop on its own. And you don't have to keep sort of manipulating it and replanting that new story in there. Multidimensionally, everything is like, okay, we got you, girl. And then it starts running through all time and space and all dimensions. And then your power coming into the moment becomes expanded and even greater, because there's more of you through all time and space on board with who you're being right now in the third dimension. And that's your point of power. So whether we're talking about sex or anything else, that's your point of power. Conserve your powers. Be like the capacious ocean, absorbing quietly all the tributary rivers of the senses. Daily renewed sense yearnings sap your inner peace. They are like openings in a reservoir that permit vital waters to be wasted in the desert soil of materialism. The forceful, activating impulse of wrong desire is the greatest enemy to the happiness of man. Roam in the world as a lion of self-control. Don't let the frogs of sense weakness kick you around. I have had clients, and there's only one little or two sentences left here, but I pause here because I have had clients in the past, and this is when it's interesting, when I was in brahmacharya, I had a handful of clients specifically that were like sex addicts. And that's like the only time in my life that I worked with sex addicts, of course, when I was practicing celibacy. It was a perfect match because I got to be this like holy, just holding space in a holy way for these people that were really bound to their root chakra. They were really bound to that. There was an addiction, right? And we've talked about this before about porn and addiction to porn and to just that, relief in that way. But where it's just a very sensational, third dimensional, orchestrated, it becomes a mechanical pattern that it becomes an addiction, and then you have to feed the addiction, right? And it's almost like it's out of your control. You can't handle it. You have to, just do this thing. But this is like, no, take your power back. And if you're going to do the thing, and it's appropriate to do the thing, whether it's with yourself or with another at that time and space, then the invitation is to make it holy, make it sacred. Be aware that you are a body of light. And that when you activate your sexual energy, you are orchestrating an activation of rivers of light through all of your channels and through your body. How is that energy going to be utilized? How are you going to utilize it? Do you ever think about these things? These are things in Taurus consciousness and with the sacred orgasm that we are very aware of, because we're very aware of our energy. There comes a certain point where you're like, oh, no, I can't even eat that potato salad. It doesn't have the right energy. You become a little bit of an energy snob, or maybe a big energy snob. But what's happening is you're beginning to listen to your intuition. You're beginning to listen to your here I am, or to your I am here, and to your higher self, really, that is saying like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, 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 no, 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 yes, yes. And you're like, okay, learning the meter of trusting and navigating your path in alignment with higher self. So to finish off from Yogananda here, a true devotee is finally freed from all instinctive compulsions. He transforms his need for human affection into aspiration for God alone, a love solitary because omnipresent. And this is very important because it is a love alone. Right? It is a love that is solitary. It is you and God. And even if you're making love with another person, right, there's that sense of like in this third dimension, we forget, because we become body identified. And so you're making love with Gina or Bob or whoever it is, and you're having an orgasm with them, say, yet what's really happening is that you're having an orgasm with God. With source, with love, with light, whatever name you would give, that omniscient present. And when you orgasm in that sacred manner, when you are conscious of it, you are creating that divine blueprint. You are orchestrating, you're carving out the divine conditions to say, enter me, God, let me know you more. I want to know you. I'm creating a sacred space whereby I can know you on deeper and deeper levels, and understand who I am as you in frequency. And we do that through the heart center. That is what fourth dimensional consciousness is about. That's what this Taurus consciousness is about. So I forgot I did have more here. And it's when he meets Gandhi and they talk about sex. So let's go ahead and read this because, Gandhi Ji. Okay, now, and it's funny, I lost my marker for where this starts, or did I? Give me a moment. Maybe not. Maybe it's just this little paragraph. Okay. Aha. Yes. Okay, here we go. Paramahansa says, he's in Gandhi's presence. I remarked on several very recent Western books on diet, which lay on his desk. Yes, diet is important in the Satyagraha movement, as everywhere else, he said with a chuckle. Because I advocate complete continence for Satyagaris, I'm always trying to find out the best diet for the celibate. One must conquer the palate before he can control the procreative instinct. Semi-starvation or unbalanced diets are not the answer. After overcoming the inward greed for food, a Satyagari must continue to follow a rational vegetarian diet with all necessary vitamins, minerals, calories, and so forth. By inward and outward wisdom in regard to eating, the Satyagari's sexual fluid is easily turned into vital energy for the whole body. Now we're starting to get into the deeper dimensions of the spiritual aspect, the sexual fluid. You have sexual fluid. You're like, I know. But men and women, right? Sometimes we only talk about like, oh, the man's, he must keep his seed. It's like, well, okay, women, you can do that too. You can hold your seed. You can also learn, as we're talking about today, if you are guided to use it, how to use it without abusing it, how to use it and to activate a stimulation through all of your chakras, through your entire energy body, and actually also activate the torus field of your sacred geometry. Getting closer to God, becoming God, knowing you are God, right? And moving outside of shame. Now, it's very interesting here. He speaks about diet, but also the sexual fluid is easily turned into vital energy for the whole body. So we think about that, right? Why do so many spiritual people like drink like healthy water or alkaline water, or why do they like eat sprouts? Or like, why do people eat raw food, or why are people vegan, or why, and perhaps these are questions that you are still pondering, and perhaps you are aware of some aspects of what that's about for you or for a general level, but there is the aspect of everything that goes inside of us. Right? We are creating either an acid or an alkaline foundation for ourselves, right? Internally, which is either going to lean us towards greater health or greater illness, right? In the balance of the scheme of the pH of things. But also, we're either adding life force to us, activating through the life force that we're adding into us, activating the life force that's already within us, amplifying it, creating the correct conditions through the path of nadis and channels within us for more of that life force to flow so that we can handle it. Because when that life force starts to flow, if your channels are not prepared to handle that kundi, that life force, that God, you'll be like, oh yeah, give me God. And then God's all there and you're like, damn. I near done blew a fuse receiving God. It's like, yeah, sometimes it happens like that. Because it's really so very powerful, right? But we'll always receive what we're ready to get, what we're ready to receive, what we're ready to employ. And so, yes, diet has a huge part to do with your ability, right, to get it up, to be turned on, but also to be too turned on. So there's Ayurveda, the Indian science of life, the science of nature, and how all of nature, we are made up of all of these elements, and how the foods and the aspects, the things we put on our skin, the things we breathe, the thoughts that we think, how everything is continually working in either a harmonious, bringing balance, or an inharmonious way, depending on your dosha and what systems are predominant in you. And so it's consciously working with these elements, because there's a lot of things that we can place in our diet, whether it's drinks, smokes, food, that will just keep you in your root chakra. It'll just keep you thinking about sex all the time. And there's things that will keep you in a more pure-headed level of being in the world, so that there isn't a continual distraction in that way. Because as a spiritual aspirant, as a student, right, we're in bodies And again, this practice is for folks who know they're in bodies and who are still having sex, whether it's by themselves or with a sacred other or others. And even though we're giving the foundation of celibacy, it's just so that there's that juxtaposition, right? To really see the spectrum of what's going on here. And so understanding that, yes, we can have sex, we can make orgasm sacred by placing our awareness there and learning different practices and ways. And according to Gandhiji, right, diet is being such an important part of us being able to maintain a sense of spiritual sovereignty. Because if you're on a spiritual path, yet you can't help yourself because you're addicted to sex or masturbating, and you can't find that balance, and there's a certain point where it's like distracting you, where you have to hide stuff, or you have to hide things from people, from your partner. It becomes this weird pattern of addiction, of like greed, and like where you're like, oh, this is this thing I need to do, and where it's just distracting you. It's destructive to your relationships, to your work, to your, where it just becomes this, it's an addiction that you can't control. That's the point where we're really talking like, okay, there's perhaps some considerations. Let's start thinking about what's going on in the diet. There's some outer peripheral things that maybe we don't think about, that we can consider changing, that can help to change the whole paradigm of how the chemistry is working in our bodies. The Yoga Sutras. So let's keep going. And you know what I noticed? I'm going to let it go though. I'm not even going to say it. I already said it, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say anything else. Okay. So this is really cool. Now I love nose is itchy again. Remember, I keep every show, I'm like, my nose gets itchy. And in Ireland, they say that's someone thinking of you. So, okay. Besides all of us, whoever's here hanging out, we're thinking of each other. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, right? This is my favorite, by Swami Satyananda. He's passed now, but he's got these yogis have such a great sense of humor. They talk about everything, drugs and sex and rock and roll from a very detached, enlightened way. And the Yoga Sutras is, if you're on a spiritual path at all, I highly recommend picking up any Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It's such a foundational set of teachings, right? That really help to shape our practice of yoga, whether you roll out the yoga mat or just employ the aspects of the lessons and the teachings into your day-to-day life. I highly recommend it. And I love his version. So we're going to read here, and there's going to be some words I might get a little tongue twisted, but we're going to do our best. So it's interesting. So we're going to read a little bit off from, he's speaking about brahmacharya, which was that celibacy, which I was telling you about. I was in for a couple years. So it is book 2, and the sutra's 38, but we're going to start. Oh my God, this nose is itching. We're going to start. This is so interesting. Excuse me. So we're going to start here. By observing, here being page 131, if you're following. By observing celibacy, we preserve not just physical energy alone, but mental, moral, intellectual, and ultimately spiritual energy as well. Sexual energy that is preserved gets transformed into a subtle energy called ohas. Now remember what Gandhiji was saying. Gandhiji was saying the sweet nectar, right? That we learn how to keep this life force within us, and that by applying the right diet, right, on so many different levels, a diet of so many things, right, of thoughts, of actions, words, deeds, food, etc., but that we can generate that sacred nectar within us. And so there's a sense that this is what Satchidananda is talking about. Okay, sexual energy that is preserved gets transformed into a subtle energy called ohas. This is similar to personal magnetism. Right? Think about people who have that magnetism, where they've got that charisma and that like glow. And it's not necessarily because they're wearing a push-up bra or a guy showing off his six-pack, whatever's sexy to the man and whatever's sexy to the woman. I just got to keep itching my nose here. Pardon me. And you know what? I'm also going to go to the point of creation of me getting an itchy nose for whatever story that someone's thinking about me. I don't really need that right now. So as it serves us to not have it here, I release it. So this is similar to personal magnetism. So think about folks that just have that, like, it's vitality, it's kundi, it's kundalini, it's life force, and where it's just like brimming and overflowing. And you're just like, dang, they got it going on. And you're like, don't necessarily need to think like, oh, I want to have sex with them, but where you're just like, they are turned on, where you see it, you just see it. And they could be dressed from head to toe in a sleeping bag. And it's not about the skin that they're showing or whatever, but there's an energy, and it's the ohas. It's that nectar. It's the life. It's your own personal life force energy. And he's calling it personal magnetism. It tones the personality, builds the nerves, improves brain power, and calms the mind. There is a similar word to ohas in English, ozone. Now, isn't that interesting? In the early morning before sunrise, we can go out and breathe the ozonic winds. So you're at the beach, that smell? That's ozone. That's ozone in the air. In the early morning before sunrise, we can go out and breathe this ozonic wind, which has a special vibration and energy to it. But once the sun's rays fall, this effect is lost. That's why the period between 4 and 6 in the morning is called the Brahma Muhurta, the Brahmic time or divine period, and is a very sacred time to meditate. And ohas, when stored, creates tejas. Tejas is the aura or the glow. A newspaper reporter once wrote an article about me called "The Swami Makes the People Glow." How can the Swami do this? Is it some peculiar yogic makeup? No. Everyone can glow and can transmit that energy when they preserve a lot of ohas. Even ordinary carbon left under the earth in an airtight chamber for a considerable time gets hardened, changes its color, and becomes a diamond. If you preserve honey, it gets crystallized. In the same way, the semen gets transformed and diffused. This is why continence is a very important part of yoga. If a handful of people come forward with strong wills, nothing is impossible. One Buddha changed half the globe. One Jesus, 3/4 of the world. We all have that capacity. Let us know the value of brahmacharya, that it certainly will make us strong, happy, healthy, wealthy, and blissful. So while you may not be practicing celibacy or brahmacharya, again, that deepening of your awareness and rooting your awareness in that there is a spiritual aspect, a sacred practice that is happening with these sacred, mystical, magical nectars within us, with these powers. Ohas, when stored, creates tejas or tejas. I call it tejas. The aura, right? This is your aura. This is your glow. So when you have strong vitality, when your sexual energy, as Marianne Williamson says, and I love how she says this for women specifically, when she says, when your goddess is in the temple, it's like you can, yeah, and these are my words now, but you can have sex every day. You can have several partners. You can masturbate as many times as you want, whatever all this stuff is outside of the shame and the blame and the whatever stories that might go with all of that stuff. But you can have, a sexually active life and lifestyle. Again, whether it's alone or with another or with others, that can be healthy, that can be rooted in spirit, that can be regenerative for you, that doesn't have to spill your seed, that doesn't have to give your tejas and your ohas away, that can help you store the tejas and the ohas. Now I'm calling it tejas. Help me. See, and I can't even go into my chat because I can't see it. I was going to ask Reiki the energy, my sister over on in Instagram. She's here too, but again, I can't even see if anyone's even here or saying hi. So I'm grateful. I'm just grateful for this space. So thank you. Yes. When we learn how to recycle that sacred life force energy, which is what the sacred orgasm is about, this is when we don't spill our seed. This is when we create the tejas. We create that glow, right? Do you see some people, and this is going to sound very judgmental, right? But so let's just put it in a beautiful bubble, a triple ring golden light, because there is no judgment. Yet, it has been, in my experience, the past, those that I have come across that are really bound and addicted to, and I speak because I've had, again, these clients in the past, very long time ago, but there was a common thread of uh, of a lack of life force energy, where even though they were like a slave to sex, they were a slave to the orgasm, they were a slave to that sexual energy and that pattern within themselves, however they went about performing that, because they were a slave to it, and there was no sacred element and sacred dance and employment of that, that blueprint of sacred quality going into their practice, they would come and they would spill their seed over and over and over again. And the deeper you look into these ancient scriptures, you're going to see like, oh, there's this correlation where like, yeah, this is actually your sacred, this contains your life force energy. And to hold it, to learn how to harness it, is really, really powerful. Side note, women, have you ever made love with a man or had sex, however, whatever word or whatever variable you want to say, but had sex with a man who knows how to hold his seed? And I'm not talking about just for the duration of the practice of intercourse, but on his own practice of his day-to-day, where he's learned and practices continuously how to go for 30 or 60 or more days without spilling his seed. The amount of hojas and tejas that individual cultivates is deeply profound. And I can tell you from myself, because I have had the experience, that it is like no other. When you are with a man, as a woman, when you're with a man who doesn't masturbate, who's sure probably sexually active mentally and thinking and turned on, yet is not acting on it, is not third dimensionally pulling down their pants or having to do a thing about it, but just like, okay, learning to continually alchemate that energy, because they're on their own mission of holding their seed, of learning how it is to strengthen their chi, their prana, their life force, and learn how to manage and work with that energy throughout the entire aspect of their life. That's super powerful. And that is sex of a whole other order. Whether you employ sacred orgasm or not, that's like when you get to be with a partner that learns how to do that. And equally, I'll say, as a man with a woman who has learned how to hold themselves, their sexual energy. And when those two come together, it is very, very powerful. So let's continue. We have a few more things to read from this Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Book 2. Sutra 49. Tasmin sate svatsa prasvasayor gati vicheda pranayama. And if you've ever chanted the sutras, then you know what I mean. What this translates to: that firm posture being acquired, the movements of inhalation and exhalation should be controlled. This is pranayama. Now, why are we talking about pranayama? Because it's all about preparation. After mastering the posture, we must practice control of prana, which is what sacred orgasm is all about. So we're building up, we're building up, we're building up. This is foreplay, ladies and gentlemen. We're building up to the great moment. So after mastering the posture, we must practice control of prana by controlling the motions of inhalation and exhalation. Some people think pranayama means holding the breath in as long as we can until the nerves are strained. No, our breathing should be gentle, slow, and fully controlled, without any agitation. For example, in the practice of Nadi Suti, the alternate nostril breathing, do it slowly and gently without any retention of breath to begin with. Later, you can go on to retention. So there's baby steps. Prana is the cosmic force. So this is what we're talking about when we perform sacred orgasm, when we have the intention of lighting up that torus field that sacred geometry of the heart center, activating that Taurus consciousness, we are consciously conducting and co-creating with God, with source, with spirit, the correct conditions, the correct pathways for that prana, that life force, that chi, that cosmic life force energy to flow, to generate, to function through us. As gasoline, it moves the motor car. So he's saying prana is the cosmic force without which nothing moves or functions. I like to think sometimes, and this is room for exploration as an author and a researcher and a speaker. There's there's so many rabbit holes. And the job is almost never done. You're like, I'm going to just research this for the rest of my life until you decide to put the paintbrush down, right? Yet, in my research and in my meditations and stuff, there's this aspect of like, that logos, this aspect of logos. If you ever heard the term logos, I often think, which is the animating force of all creation, right? It is that presence that without logos, nothing would be alive. And often I'm like, prana feels that in that same way to me. It's the gasoline that moves the motor car. As electricity, it radiates light through a bulb. Even our thoughts are moved by prana. By pranayama, which is those breathing practices, and really that's not the correct definition, but on a generalization, we deal with it directly, and we must be careful. It's not easy to control prana. It takes time. In all of us, there is a reserve of prana. An automobile has a reserve tank, which we can open if we run out of gas. We also have a reserve tank of prana. So while there is this generation of life force and this basic level, there's a sense of like there's a reserve. And if you do Reiki, right, I often will say like, we know in Reiki, you don't use your energy. I'm not healing you. I'm not using my personal reserves of my prana, of my chi, of my ohas or teha. I'm not using my personal reserves of anything to help heal anyone at any time. I'm getting out of the way and I'm creating the correct conditions for me to be empty, to be a channel for that life force energy, that cosmic love force to channel through me, to then show the person who's receiving to remember, to remind their bodies how to remember to heal itself. So you're just holding space. Why am I saying this? I feel like, am I still here? Because when we want to become a healer or we feel guided to become a healer, there's a sense of because you want to help people, right? And it's a really lovely thing. Yet then later you realize like, this isn't about me just going and putting hands on every single person every time they like stub their toe or have a headache. There's a much bigger, broader spectrum, but only if you're called to do a lot of the work in that way do you get sort of access to that mode of information. Otherwise you will never know unless you have the experience, right, of being able to work with a lot of people in different scenarios and situations. Then you're like, okay, get a much broader perspective of what's going on. And so in that same way, I would often remind, folks, especially new students, that it's like, step out of the way. You're a channel. Let the Reiki do the work for you, even when you're working on yourself, right? And to be mindful not to give your own energy, because when we give our energy, what's happening is you're giving, in Chinese medicine, you hold your personal chi is generated from your kidneys and your adrenal glands right back here, right around above your waistline. If you just bend and place your palms on your back, that's pretty much where your kidneys are. Massive, important filters for the body in so many ways. But besides that, the generator of chi in the body. And again, now I forget what I'm saying all this for. So we never want to, thank you, higher self. So when we lay hands and we're there for longer than higher self or our Reiki angels are guiding us, what happens is the Reiki stops flowing, as you may know, students. And what happens then, if you're insisting your will to heal this person or like to change them in some way, number one, know that you're cock blocking the divine flow because you're placing a judgment that things are not perfect and that they need to be changed in some way in an order that you perceive for things to be corrected, which is not the way that we practice. But if we do decide to force a will, what happens is you're using your own personal reserves, your kidney chi, your body's ability, your energy vehicle's ability to generate chi. Whenever you do that and you extend from yourself and not make that divine connection with source God, whether you're a Reiki student or not, right? When you're forcing a will in a way, you're using your personal chi, which will have a direct effect on your chi, but maybe perhaps more on that later. But just so that you understand that there's a difference, right? There's a difference between, again, it's all the intention. It's that really simple stuff of making that conscious intention of inviting God in when you masturbate. I mean, it sounds bizarre and like nothing we would ever learn in school, especially if you went to Catholic school. Right? But it's like, okay, no, these are, it's a different time. It's a different age. We're in the Aquarian age now. We get to be free thinkers. We get to release ourselves. We've been doing so many years of healing work on so many multidimensional levels. And it's time now. We get to relax and let ourselves off the hook. Let ourselves see things differently in a more expanded, practical way. Because again, you know, maybe you're not having sex and you wish you would have more sex, you know, but we are, unless we are brahmacharya, unless we are a monk, unless we are, you know, observing those very, very strict spiritual practices, chances are you're married or you have a boyfriend or you have a girlfriend or you're on Tinder or I don't know what. You know, and we're sex people. We got sex organs, and sex is a part of this whole conscious, unconscious being here of this, you know, like what the first teachings in the first autobiography, what he was saying, where it's just that co-creation. It's that biological, like we need to procreate, we need to keep we need to sustain this whole matrix. But when we get out of that matrix thinking, when we get out of that blueprint, letting that blueprint like take over and like, there's nothing I can do. My body I need to have sex all the time and I need to fuck everyone everywhere and I need to masturbate constantly, which believe me, I've worked with those people and they're sincere and they really want to learn. Like I can't, like it's like they have a monster they can't control. It can be a real deal, right? When sex is like, but then, you know, you get to navigate generating a healthy relationship for yourself in those domains. And that's then part of the work, perhaps, for you. Okay, let's keep going. So just knowing, though, when we call in God, source, we generate and create that sacred space for a sacred orgasm, you are already setting the tone for regeneration. You are already setting the space to invite a multidimensional experience in versus just a genital experience of pleasure in, okay? Okay, God is even more sensible and has given us a reserve tank that is hundreds of times greater than what we use normally. This is called Kundalini, or the coiled force. Now, we've talked about Kundi many times. People talk about rousing the Kundalini, but when they can't control even their little day-to-day force, what is the purpose of getting into that? So that brings us into this very interesting paradigm. Remember we were talking last week or so about, you know, when someone is like fully like third eye, crown is like, ooh, la, 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 la. And they're, you know, channeling and they're doing whatever, all sorts of stuff. Yet, you know, if you can't pay your bills, if you can't keep, if you can't maintain a sense of taking care of yourself in an organized fashion, if you can't master and be like, you know, down with the 3D and like, you know, your way how to navigate through the matrix, you know, and still trip the light fantastic and still be like, woo, I love God, you know, but be like, and I got my bills paid and my car is washed or whatever those things are. There's no judgment and there's no right or wrong, but you understand, like, all the lights turned on, not just the little God stuff up here. And it's not little, but it's little if you don't have the other aspects lit up too, right? We're talking about all the lights being turned on. We're talking about the whole line lighting up. The Kundi, coiled snake at the root chakra, right? So that's what we're accessing when we create the sacred orgasm, when we create the correct conditions for sacred orgasm, is we are creating the space to have that sacred connection with God in that orgasm. And so we are creating the correct conditions for Kundi to be like, oh, there's a sacred space, there's a sacred container that has been created for me. I can voyeur, I can come out of this place, I can come out of this space, of the confines of the subconscious dwelling of this root chakra, and actually come into my body, into my second chakra, my sexuality, my here I am as a sexual being, and feel the presence and the power of just relaxing into that, of surrendering to my power, which is really love, which is really God, which is really not anything to do with you, except for you are God. But in the terms of mine, my power, your power, this sort of thing, it's just the power that we all plug into ultimately on this spiritual path, right? But as he's saying, there's this preparation, getting to know, anyway, so it's sidetracked, but that was a side note, because on the spiritual path, there can be, and again, there's no judgment, but there's just this reaching for enlightenment, reaching for these spiritual powers of whatever it might be, to see auras or to move objects or to even heal people. It's like, I want knowledge or whatever it is. Yet that is fool's gold, right? That's fool's gold, because that is what keeps us bound. That's what keeps us bound. And ultimately, we're working towards liberating ourselves, towards being sovereign within the domain. And especially if you are a slave to your own sexuality, or to patterns of abusing yourself, or being violent towards yourself, or of putting yourself down, or of shaming yourself when you do want to experience pleasure. Here's a way that you can use this template to create the sacred anatomy, the sacred space for your Kundalini to rise, to awaken in a sacred manner that can then create the correct conditions for that energy to merge with the sacred energy that you already contain, like he was saying before, to generate then the tejas. You build those hojas, your spiritual juices, your nectars, that juiciness. When you hang out with spiritual people, and if you're not like necessarily a spiritual person or something, you'd be like there's something about them, right? There's something different. There's a different vibe going on. It's the frequency. It's literally their vibration, the spin state of their atomic structure that is different. Okay. One should only do it after qualifying and preparing himself or herself. So he's talking about this Kundalini, of really activating it, right? Because sometimes we're like, I just want the Kundalini. I just want my third eye open. And Tool has that song, Prying Open My Third Eye, where people are like, they just want to, I've even been in experiences with partners where that they are very tapped in and turned on and tuned in and like all right here and really get it, and they're able to speak it, and they got the love, yet it's all this stuff and their own experience of being in their body and going through their own dark night of the soul and their own hell realms and healing their own stuff with their root chakra and with their second chakra and in their third chakra and where that's not there. And so they can speak the talk and talk the talk and be a good person and know God and all that stuff. Yet all the lights are not turned on. When it comes to the third dimensional stuff, then there's like, there's a whole bunch of homework to do. And it's not right or wrong. Just knowing that it's not, one isn't better than the other. If we're going to work with this system, we get to use it. We get to employ it and use it consciously and use it all, not just one or two chakras, because it doesn't work like that. And eventually you'll come to understand that. It is for our, so he says one should, get into activating the Kundalini only after preparing him or herself. It is for our own safety that I say this, At the proper time, this reserve is released automatically. One shouldn't awaken it prematurely by practicing difficult or violent breathing exercises. So yeah, we're not forcing. Sometimes we it's very natural though, because we get into this phase of feeling like I've wasted my whole life being a victim. I've wasted my whole life feeling bullied. I've wasted my whole life. Or, there's these things where we can get into these where we beat ourselves up. And then we finally start to get turned on and begin to feel this resonance with teachings of a spiritual order. And then all of a sudden we're in a rush and we're like, whoa, wait. I get this. And it's clicking because it's truth, right? And you're ready for truth. And so it's like click, 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 connecting the dots. But then you're like, okay, let's go. Let's get there already. I need to know. Give me more, And even with the Kundi, we create the correct conditions on a daily basis, continually, for the Kundalini to automatically, as Satchidananda says, to automatically, that wellspring to be released through us. And there's practices. There's the crystals, right, which we'll get into later. There's our monthly moon, which is not the female menstrual cycle, but is the cycle of for your sign. Every month, the moon is in your sign for around a 3-day or so period, 2 or 3 day period. And it is at that time that there is a certain seed. And I won't go into this because I'm not prepared and with notes, and I really want to know what I'm talking about because it is not my forte. I do practice Christos, minding my sacred seed. But there's a lamp of oil that is a Christ oil within us, these sacred substances, these nectars that the yogis know. They talk about the Buddhists, all the ancient ones, they know these sacred oils reside within us. And there's a specific way to work with this rising of the oils as it moves up through the spinal column and melds and merges with the cerebrospinal fluid, and creates a beautiful orchestration of just these neurotransmitters, of just this feel good, where you're naturally high. You're high on Christ, you're high on love, you're high on God. But there's certain things that we do and we prepare if we really want to harness this, because we want to keep this oil, this Christ light, this lamp. We want to keep our lamps burning. We want to keep ourselves turned on. Right. And so even if you do have sex regularly or you do masturbate regularly, right there, if you practice Christos, observing your Christos, that's what I call it. There will be this 3-day period, or even maybe 3 days on either side of that 3-day period, where you don't smoke, you don't eat certain foods, you don't drink alcohol. You definitely don't have sex or masturbate during that, especially that 3-day period. And again, maybe either side of it, just to really create those powerful, clear conditions to harness your sacred seed, because then what happens is it becomes amplified, and that generates more of that glow, of that ohas, of that tejas in your being. And that magnetism, again, multidimensionally becomes expanded. And you're not controlling it. You're not like, I will have an aura 50 feet big. It's just like, honey, your aura just starts becoming 50 feet big, because you're just creating the correct conditions to channel God, to channel the sacred and the divine, to be and embody the sacred and the divine. So it's all going to find its way through you. Right? And so creating the correct conditions for it to do so. Now we do have a little more reading, and I know there was a little distraction earlier, and I'm very grateful if you are still here watching. And as always, I pray that everything I share serves your path of spiritual growth and sovereignty. And these live streams help me to really organize the thoughts of the teachings that I'm guided to share. So I don't know what's going to happen, family, whether I'm still going to be here or there or where this is all going to end up being. But this is in service. And so I thank you for being here and for being a part of just holding space while I share, okay, what I'm guided to do, because this is all purely guided. It just is. If you weren't here, I would still be sitting here recording this information for somewhere to put it later, or to put it in a time capsule. So it doesn't matter to me if you're watching now or later. I'm just here doing what I would normally be doing. Anyway, and Instagram is what it is, and we'll see where all that stuff is going to go. But for now, I'm very grateful, and I pray the blessing of love and light over you. So we do have more to read. And we have more to read. because this is all a buildup, you see. Like I said, this is foreplay for when we get to the sacred orgasm, the actual sacred orgasm part of it all. And so if you're still here, get ready for the biggest orgasm of your life. No, well, you never know. I am going to read, though, from the Chakra Handbook. And this is very interesting because now we're talking, so we're, going in through Yogananda, understanding these, the spiritual aspect with the sutras, and now bringing in, yes, still a continuation of that spiritual aspect, but now thinking about the framework of the yin and the yang, the male and the female energies specifically, right? That divine masculine and feminine. During sexual union, this is page 63. During sexual union, the flow of energy along the main channel Sushumna is extremely stimulated and intensified. The flow of energy in the second chakra increases enormously, and this abundance of energy will charge all the other chakras if the chakra system is not blocked. The sexual energy, representing a certain form of prana, is hereby transformed into the frequencies of the other chakras. Starting from the chakras, it radiates out through the nadis, those are the channels in your body that carry that prana, that life force, into the physical body and the energy bodies, charging them with heightened vital energy. So yes, so we think about the layers of the aura, right? That this is not just this like sensation that's happening in the genitals, but that is one that we can, again, create the correct conditions to harness, to translate into moving that energy like a fountain through the torus field, generating the torus field, strengthening it, and also strengthening all of the layers of our bodies. And here, mostly we speak just generally about the physical, the mental, and the emotional, and we can get into, and we have done we did that show on the etheric body, talked maybe a little bit briefly about the astral, and I like to keep it pretty simple though, in general terms, multidimensionally, physical, mental, emotional. It's like these dynamics of our presence here in the matrix and mastering those aspects of self. So understanding that all of those bodies, all of those parts of you will be charged by harnessing your life force in this way. Okay, so starting from the chakras, this life force, it radiates out through the nadis into the physical body and the energy bodies, charging them with heightened vital energy. At the climax of this union, a tremendous energetic discharge in all 7 chakras is achieved in both partners, and a fusion takes place on all levels represented by the chakras. Such a fulfilling sexual union can only be attained in these dimensions. However, if the partners relate completely with each other and free themselves of all fears that might hinder the free flow within their energy systems, if only one chakra is blocked in one of the partners, the union cannot be experienced in this perfection. Moreover, the blocked chakra creates a disturbance within the energy flow of the corresponding chakra of the partner. So, thinking about, right, the ultimate fantasy is, it's like, especially if you're having sex with someone, it's like the 2 people at the same time, orgasming at the same time. You're having this perfect like fantasy, like a movie, like and everything is great, right? And how often does that happen? I've talked to a lot of people. It's more rare. But where there's conscious practices and when you're really in, synchronizing with the other person, it can happen more regularly. Okay, so they're just speaking to that. At the physical human level, the interaction of forces manifests itself as sexuality, though through it, the human being is connected with the eternal act of the creation of life in its entirety, and the ecstasy he or she may experience is a reflection of the bliss of creation. Within the entire universe, the forces of yin and yang manifest themselves as polarity. In order to exist, everything has its opposite or counterpoint. Every point depends on its counterpoint in order to exist. And if one aspect of this polarity ceases to be, its opposite no longer exists either. This fundamental rule can be applied to everything. We can exhale only if we inhale. And if the one ceases, so does the other. The internal brings about the external. Day brings about night. Light brings about shadow. Birth leads to death. Woman leads to man, etc. whereby the two given polarities are always interchangeable. In order to be complete, every point must have its counterpoint. Yin and yang clearly symbolize the rhythmic movement of all life. Yin represents the female, extending emotional, passive, and unconscious part of the whole, whereas yang stands for the male, contracting active and conscious side. Oh, contracting and the active and conscious side. This, however, in no way represents a value judgment in the sense of one or the other possessing more worth. Okay. And existing in balance with is having that dot of the dark in the light and having the dot of light in the dark. It's that balance of both, right? It's not just one or the other. And that's why, again, it's not just about having your third eye open. It's about having, it's not about having everything open, but it's about being conscious that there are other things to open. If you're going to be opening stuff, then just the third eye or the crown. Most people experience sexuality only via the second chakra. In addition, the energy of the root chakra plays a dominant role in the male sex as a physical driving force. Again, this book was written by a man and a woman, but that feels that that's a very perhaps male perspective. Okay. This is comparable to strumming merely. Okay, so if sexuality remains limited to the lower chakras, this is comparable to strumming merely one or two strings of a musical instrument. The entire spectrum of sounds it is capable of will never ring out. So just like you, right? If you're only focusing on that, stimulating the clitoris or on just orgasming or just, getting to the end point, to really know all your colors turned on while you are allowing yourself and generating the preparedness of being turned on so that you can be even more turned on, and not just while you're having sex or at play or masturbating, but while you are, walking in your everyday life where there's a continuation of that flowing life force energy, of that juicy vitality, of that, where you start to have sex with all of life. And I mean that on the highest level, where there's this interplay, where you recognize the exchange of energy. And there's a playfulness, a lightness. And it doesn't even have to be sexual at all. It's not even about flirting, but where it's just this open to receive, to give, to breathe in and out with all of creation. It's being turned on. So again, all the lights turned on, strumming all the strings of the guitar, which is funny. I have the guitar here, not just one or two strings. In fact, from an energetic point of view, a great deal of energy is exhausted by such sexual practice, right? If we just focus on just getting off in that way, as energies are drained from other chakras and transformed into sexual energy in order to stream out through the second chakra, like specifically, if it's just to get off and it's just to focus on a very sensational, third dimensional, sensory experience, then that's what it's going to be limited to. In this way, the energies are prevented from taking their natural way to the top, flowing simultaneously into all seven chakras and charging them with additional life force, because that's what's happening. When we allow that kundalini to rise, it pierces through the veil of each chakra and it impregnates them. It actually plants its seed of sacred power and life force, cosmic life force within each chakra. So as you learn to hold your seed, to regenerate your seed with the sacred orgasm, which I feel is like it's coming up soon. It's coming up soon. This is all a buildup. It's like 5-hour show. No, it is what it is. But that we learn how to do that, how to hold that frequency. The most natural way to dissolve the blockages which impair complete sexual union at all levels is an exchange of the heart's chakras energies. If both partners radiate the love from their heart freely and without fear, their own energy system as well as that of another person will harmonize increasingly, right? And we know fear and anxiety create blockages. They constrict, they constrain, whereas love, trust, open, right? They soften and expand. Okay. So this is why we experience far greater fulfillment in sexual union when, in addition to mutual physical attraction, partners are united in a profound state of love. In this case, higher energy frequencies are activated, lifting sexuality beyond the purely physical and letting it evolve into spiritual union. Perfect union with a beloved partner lets us experience inner oneness with the pulsating life of the universe. And I mean, come on, how sexual is that? Pulsating. The universe is pulsating. The universe is breathing in and out. The universe is in motion. The universe is making love with itself. In my other studies, right, with grid mind science, those Birkeland currents, the cosmic rays from the sun that shoot down to the earth, that transmute cosmic life force through the earth grids, the ley lines, and such. Melchizedek says that that's the sun and the earth making love and having massive orgasms. When those northern lights happen in the sky, you know, that this is all, he's saying that this is all a part of nature, of the earth and the sun making love. And so you imagine that that's what we're doing, right? With that divine feminine, that divine masculine within ourselves. And it's outside of genitalia. It has to do with the forces, right? Of the soft and the hard, of the yin and the yang, of the receptive, right? And of the very, you know, conscious present and in your faceness, and of the, you know, of the doing, of the working, but then of also of the receiving, of the being, and all of those forces, right? It's the push and pull of creation, and it's the push and pull of having sex, of the sexual act. Okay. There we go. So at the moment of climax, when duality, which is the grid system, the matrix, is briefly transcended, we experience unity with the absolute formless being, which is the firm basis and objective of the interaction of polarity. Now, without, what does that mean? That means that without this, there's no sex. There's no this. Right? Without love, without the foundation of all creation, there's no creation. So, okay, let's talk now. The premise for the sacred orgasm. When they first started showing me it, I was in practice, right? In masturbation. And I remember they came in and they reminded me of the power in my hands, of the power in my body, of what was happening. And they said, we want to show you something. And I'm like, okay, right now I'm like in the middle of something. And they're like, we're going to show you something about sexual creation. And I was like, okay, well, I guess while we're in it, this is perfect. And they went on to guide me very specifically in a practice that has become the sacred orgasm. And I can read through it again for you. I know there's been a lot of reading today. Some days are like that. But it's important to connect the dots. And it's guided. So it is what it is, right? But we will read from that shortly. But in brief, what I was beginning to understand on an even deeper level in the practice of this. So they gave me the download. And I remember the first time I did it, it was successful. It was that first time when it all came, pun, together. And it all came together. Like, it was just like, okay, I guess it was time. And obviously higher self knows. And they're like, okay, we're going to call in, or she's masturbating. We want to give her this teaching of the sacred orgasm so she can pass it along and put it in her books or whatever. And she's masturbating. How about now? And of course I was like, well, okay, God. I mean, I knew it was coming from a higher source. And I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. So, building light. We know from a little bit of research, a little bit of reading we've done so far this morning, that we already have, right, a reserve of Kundalini. We already have a reserve of life force energy within us. We're aware, as these spiritual students, that this omnipresent, omniscient life force energy, this cosmic force, is within us and all around us. Perhaps we're aware also, we're coming into that awareness of the nadis, of the channels in the body, and how we can create the correct conditions for more life force to flow through those nadis and those channels, to increase our wellness, our health, our happiness, our mental clarity, our emotional well-being, so many different aspects, right? Really, do increase our vitality and our sense of libido, of being present, of being healthy and happy, and having that, just that juiciness. It doesn't have to mean you have to act on it, but to have some kind of an awakened vitality in the lower chakras, right? The willingness to get out of bed, to be excited for life on some level, even if it's just for your coffee. It's a start, right? But I remember, so here I am in process, and they're telling me, like, so I'm in process, and they're like, okay, we're going to wait until you get to the point of building climax. And I'm like, okay, so here we are. So now we're starting to build the climax. And what happens is they're like, okay, hold the climax that you're building in the second chakra. Begin to move that energy. Be aware of what's happening in the root chakra, the genitals, the physical, third dimensional aspect, but energetically within your system, and via the feeling sensation of pleasure, but also tapping into the pulsation, the activation of the inhale, exhale that's going on that cosmic level with your body while you're in form. Okay. They're like, move that energy from the root into your second chakra. Build a ball of light, an orb of light in your second chakra while you start to enter the gateway of the orgasm, and then while the orgasm is happening. So there's a point, right? You're having sex with your beloved, or perhaps with yourself. There's a point where you're like, okay, we're getting into, like, we've turned the page, and now we're going to the next level, and it's getting us closer to that orgasm, if that's what you're going to do, because you don't have to orgasm at all either, right? That's a whole other thing. You don't even have to orgasm at all. But if you are going to, and that's the point, is that we are people in bodies, and this practice recognizes that perhaps we have a spiritual practice, a spiritual lifestyle, and perhaps we're having sex with our husband, or our wife, or our lovers, or our lover, or whatever it is. And, universe, source, spirit is saying, here is a blueprint. Here's a methodology that you can consider to implement, to keep and maintain and regenerate that vital life force that you're doing so good at generating in the first place. Because we don't want to spill our seed. Unless we're going to spill it on purpose, then you're going to do it consciously. And then you might go back then to, like, okay, sacred orgasm next time, but hey, who knows? I don't know. It's up to you how you do what you do, right? But there's no right or wrong. And this is just a template that you can use. But there's this aspect of building. Once you've turned that corner, and now you're heading into orgasm land, or you're starting to get into that zone, that energy, envisioning that ball of light, envisioning that pleasure, the energy that you're creating from the genitals and in that second chakra of your sexuality and what you're manifesting there, feeling that and imagining and envisioning as an orb of light that is generating and getting clearer and stronger and stronger, and that is building and building and building and building and building and building. And now you may be a quickie, maybe it's going to build real quick, maybe there's going to be a medium, maybe you're going to go and go and go and go, but either way, it's the same idea. You build as long as you can into the second chakra, and then when the page turns again, and you're getting closer to the actual finish line, to the actual climax, to the actual orgasm. When and you can see that on the horizon, you can feel it in your body. You're like, oh, or you're with your partner, and you're both like, okay, oh my God, it's happening. Right? Is that what happens is that then as your inner page turns, and you start to move into that, oh my God, here it comes, right? The actual experience of the climax is you begin to move that ball. Well, let me say, we're going to read, so I make sure I get it all correct as per the channelings that have come down. But what happens is that when you turn that third page then, and you're en route to orgasm, and it's actually happening, like now we've been building that ball of light, that orgasm, that feeling, that pleasure, that chi, that cosmic life force in that second chakra, and now she's gonna blow, but you're ahead of the blow. You're ahead of the blow because you see it coming, and you get better at this the more consciously you practice, and you're not just in it to win it. If that makes sense. I was going to say something very crude, but I decided not to. But you get to learn your body, right? And what's going on. And so if it feels that you're not there yet, you'll get there. Building that ball of light. Again, when that next page turns and you're going into orgasm land, you take one last breath and you hold that breath. And through that holding of that inhale in, you start to orgasm. And as you orgasm, you bring that ball of light into your heart and you orgasm through the ladder that bridges through the third chakra into the heart. But really the orgasm then is moved up and you orgasm in the heart, whether it's with yourself or with the other person. Now you're still holding your breath. You're orgasming. If it's a good one, you're going to orgasm a long time. Or maybe you can still have a good one, right? If it's just short. I'm just playing here. But the idea, you move it into the heart. You're holding the breath and you orgasm with the breath held. Yes, family, with the breath held. Mindfulness, consciousness in the heart. So you're holding the breath. You've built up all that sexual tension and energy and juicy cosmic force in your second chakra. You're orgasming, you're moving it up, you're building it up, you're orgasming in the heart. You're holding your breath, you're holding your breath. And even if you're not, even if you're like, I can't hold this. Yes, you can. In yoga, we say, your body's going to tell you you can't do something, but your mind is where you go in. And if your body's not saying like warning signal, this is going to harm you, or this is pain, this is not right for your body or your knees or something. If you don't get the red light, this warning, and there's just discomfort, which you're going to get in yoga if you're moving your body in ways you've never done before, or just learning new things, it's like it's going to happen. So if it's just that sort of a level of discomfort, which holding the breath might be, again, if these are new practices for you, you can override it unless you get if this doesn't serve you, don't do it. Just do what feels right. But unless you get like a stop warning signal, because I don't know what's going on in your health and I am not a doctor, but the idea is to go beyond what the sense of like, oh my God, I can't hold my breath for more than 2 seconds. It's like, go beyond and tell your mind, yes, you can. Okay. So the point of that was saying that even when you feel that you're orgasming, and if it's a long one and you're like, I can't hold my breath anymore. Yes, you can. I'm saying, yes, you can, for that 1 or that 2 or that 3 or that however many seconds or beats longer. Build as much as you can. That's the encouragement in your heart while holding your breath. And then when it's ready to be like, just like you can't hold it any longer, and it's just like, you're just like, oh my God. Then through the crown and like a fountain out through your torus field, you see that cosmic life force energy channeling down. It comes back up through the feet, through the base of the spine. Then you inhale, second breath, you bring it up through the center line of the spine. You see that juicy cosmic force through the inner line of the spine. Move it up into your heart again, up. Cast it out like that fountain of light, channeling and regenerating through your torus field again, up through the feet, up through the base of the spine. The third and the final breath, inhale, same thing. You bring it up into the heart, up through the crown. And like a blow spout of a whale, you're casting it out through your torus field, consciously regenerating. And then relax, receive, be. But that is the practice. And it's very, very simple. But to employ it, but to practice it, but to do it, but to work it. And especially if you're working with a beloved, with a partner, you've got to really be into this stuff. To be like, okay, I'm going to have patience and I'm going to work with you on that. So we're going to wrap up here in a bit. And I'm so grateful. Thank you for being here. This has turned into a 2-hour show. And I'm so grateful for YouTube. And as long as I can still doing videos here, I will still doing videos. So again, I have a new website up. There's new pages and whatnot. And one of the pages is called Taurus Consciousness. And on it, there's the beginnings of my interactive book called Taurus Consciousness that I'm working on. You can have a look. There's a little bit of little highlight from each chapter of what we're going to be going through, as well as the sacred orgasm, Taurus orgasm, regeneration, meditation, full body fountain. So I don't know, you can't really see it. Can you? Not really, but anyway. Full body fountain, because when we get things turned on, this is what you become, a full body fountain. This is your energy body. And heaven on earth, what we're doing is we're generating the same torus field through our heart center that radiates around the earth. We are creating the same geometry around ourselves that is the electromagnetic geometry around the heart of the earth. Remember, if you move the letters of earth around, it spells heart. And beyond this world of the matrix resides heaven on earth. Upon building orgasm, hold the energy as a ball of light in the second chakra. Build in the second chakra and allow the ball of light to expand and intensify as your orgasm builds. Hold and build your ball of light in the second chakra as long as you can. Continue building the light energy in your second chakra. Hold the energy there as it builds toward orgasm. Prior to approaching climax, though closer still, exhale all of the air out of your lungs completely. Then inhale slowly and deeply for the length of one breath. Just as you are moving into orgasm, move the ball of light from the second chakra into the heart. Experience your orgasm in the heart center as you breathe into the last part of your inhale. Hold your breath during the whole orgasm. As orgasm completes, exhale the light gathered in your heart and shoot it up through the spine, out through the top of your head, out and around through the torus field like a fountain of light washing over you from crown to feet. Repeat that 2 more times. Inhale, bringing light back up through your feet, legs, spine, arms, and complete the inhale. In the heart center, feel the light build to the top of the inhale in your heart. Exhale, push the light through your crown and envision it circulating through your torus field again. Do this in exactly the same way. 1 more time, a total of 3 times. And so this is a piece of art by Alex Gray. And here you can't really see it in the lighting here, but he's got this, it's a full body fountain. And that's what happens with the Christos as well, with this sacred seeds and these sacred nectars within us. They're so very vital and powerful, and we can use them to create sacredness in our life, but also to keep that life force energy. If you really feel that there's a lot of people or places or things that are just draining you, you're learning how to contain your energy, number one, learning how to master your time and space. Yet there's a way, right, that you can still be human. And if you want to have sex or you want to masturbate or you feel that you can make it sacred and that you don't have to spill your seed, you don't have to be exhausted, you don't have to give away your energy in any way, but that you can maintain that which you have and keep it and build it and regenerate from it, and to maintain your reserve so that you can keep building into that bank account of vital life force cosmic energy. And remember, the more vital life force cosmic energy you have within you and all around you, the more of that is going to interface with you as a part of your reality with the capital R versus your reality with the small r in the matrix. Which is fine. It's all just choices, right? It's all which level would you like to, be, frequently in alignment with and have the experience of. And if it's all just the clitoris or the cock and it's just porn and it's just root chakra and it's just to feel good in your physical body only and there's no spiritual thing, that's what it is. And it is what it is. There's no judgment. Yet if there's more for you, and you want to explore this, I'm going to invite you, go to Taurus Consciousness page at my website, read through this again, step by step. You'll be masturbating or having sex. Wait, babe, wait. No. Now it's saying we got to hold the breath. Wait, bring that ball of light into the, sure, do it. Or maybe I'll do an audio of this. Ooh, honey, the places we can go. So I thank you for being here. I can't do my little blessings community thing in the live chat for whatever reason. And I'm praying that this will even get posted later, that they'll even let me put it up. So thank you for being here. I love and appreciate this community. Go ahead and sign up for my monthly love letter. I'm going to put my Linktree links down below. You can be a part of my community online. Check out my new website. Check out my book, The Reiki Apprentice, and all of my healing services. So thank you, everyone. Blessings for a beautiful day.